Trapping Inc., the Scuttlebutt podcast.
I don't know. That's a voice.
I need to throw a little reverb on it or something in the edit suite, huh?
Ooh, I don't know.
Scuttlebutt, what a great word.
Yeah, it is a great word. What's it mean?
Webster defines it as gossip and or rumor. And it's not that we're going to be gossiping or rumoring about Trapping Inc., but more we're using it to refer to the backstory or the inside scoop or just anything we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of it being kind of the inside scoop, what's going on behind the scenes on the Trapping Inc. TV show.
Well, you know, as good as Trapping Inc. is for showing trapping and showing our life there, we have a whole lot of life outside of it. I'm Rich Mellon. I'm 59. You are...
Sandy Mellon, and I'm not telling you how old I am.
Well, you keep telling me you're 29. But you're celebrating another anniversary of your 29th birthday.
Well, I think probably I've worked up to 39 now.
But here's the deal. We've been together 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years.
That seems a little unreal.
It's been a lot of laughing, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And a lot of adventure, but I wouldn't change a second of it.
No. And along the road, we brought up 3 children who are now grown, married, have families and businesses of their own. And we're soon going to have our 7th grandbaby.
I know.
It's a little
Grandchildren are a
nuts.
lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Mostly because they go home.
You know what I really like about grandkids? Is they listen to you like you're God. Like you're handing down the gospel. Where our kids now are old enough that they look at you and they think, well, they know better.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's always great then to be able to show them, you know, trapping and hunting and fishing and that kind of stuff because they're listening to you, right?
Well, they are, and their children are mimics. They want to do what's important to them, and often grandparents play a big role in their lives, and they kind of want to be like grandpa.
Exactly.
And grandma.
Exactly. We live in northern Alberta.
We do.
And in Canada, and for our folks south of the border or back east or wherever, if you look at a map of Alberta, if you can find Calgary, and if you can go 12 hours north, that's where
by vehicle.
Yeah, but that's where our
Not
trapline
by dog
is.
sled.
No.
Although dog sleds might be worth your investment in the winter times up here.
Sometimes it's tough traveling, no question.
Yep.
But yeah, 12 hours north at 75 miles an hour. That's where we live.
So, why the trapping show? Maybe for people who don't know who we are.
Well, we were in a TV show for many years. In 1999, we started, along with a partner, a hunting show. And I don't know, I guess, 5 years ago or so, I got really interested in getting into trapping. And mostly it was because for a couple of years, a show had been very popular on TV, and it was Swamp People. And I realized that it's a reality with quotation marks reality show, and the fact that most of what's being showed on TV there is reenacted and forced drama and that. But the fact of the matter is that they were alluding to, even if it wasn't real, that they were gut hooking gators and then jerking them around on fishing line and then eventually shooting them in the head. And I thought, you know what, if that can be popular on TV, trapping is really, really normal compared to that, and we have no problems being on TV. So Trapping Inc. was born, and from the beginning, everybody it's far too controversial to be on TV.
Yeah, controversy seems to be something that people are really worried about these days, just in the world of social media and instant fame, whether it's good fame or not good fame. And I think a lot of people can be pushed to the sidelines if their view or if their activity isn't part of the mainstream conversation. And often trappers aren't part of the mainstream conversation.
Absolutely. Trappers have become almost indentured to become hidden, to try and keep out of eyesight. But today's digital world, everybody has a voice. For better or for worse, everybody has a voice. At one time, the only voice that was heard was people who had money. You had to be able to convince a very large media company or whatever that you had a message worth hearing. And so that was never the trappers. It was there was always much more money on the anti side. There was always much more ability to create, the havoc, the lies, and spread the untruths that they do about trapping, and they got all of the press. But today, anybody has a voice, as I said, and I really thought it was very much time for the trapper side to be heard. And
we've got to know a lot of trappers, and some of them are older people who shrink away from any controversy. They don't want to call attention to themselves. They just want to be alone with their craft. And a lot of times, most of the time, in fact, that is out in the bush, where you don't have a lot of these old timers. I mean, we've got cell phone towers and access to information all the time, but for years and years, these folks that are in their 70s, 80s, and some in their 90s still, that's just not a reality that they had any part of when they were in their heyday of trapping.
Well, and it wasn't always that they didn't want people to know what they were doing, but as they got older, their tolerance for BS dropped huge, and they just pushed away. And I can understand that. Yeah. I truly can. I mean, we lead with our chin all the time.
Well, you lead with your chin. Well, I stand behind you. Way behind you.
And perhaps when I started this, I was going looking for a fight. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I mean, certainly when we floated the idea to some of our advertising sponsors for the TV show, they were a little reluctant to leap in, but that first year was incredible for what we learned about who watched the show.
That was the unique part. We became immensely popular. We're the number one show on the Wild TV channel that we broadcast on here in Canada, and we're the number one. I mean that competition is in any hunting show you want to name, any fishing show you want to name is on Wild TV. We have a higher rating and better audience than any of those do. Yeah. That's a huge accomplishment. Something that, a lot of these people have giant production companies, and we're very, very small.
We are.
We're very small, but it's just the fact that I guess fancy photography or graphics or that can never replace the quality of the video, what you're showing. The subject
real
matter.
Story. Yeah, really. I mean, who knew reel could be so popular?
Well, it used to be when 30 some years ago when I was first started writing for magazines and that, and they say fantastic photos can sell a terrible article, but no photos will certainly sink a great article. Mm-hmm. And it's the truth.
Yeah,
it's the truth. We have the content and that people want. So it's fascinating that way. We quickly blew up. We blew up so fast. We were not used to it. Our Facebook pages and our emails and everything just lights up on fire all the time. How some of these people get my cell phone, I have no idea, but I get texts all the time. And it was overwhelming after all those years with the hunting show. I mean, I was used to a certain amount of that volume, but nothing like this. No. Nothing at all.
And overwhelmingly positive.
Absolutely positive. One thing I'm going to say right here, and a lot of people may disagree with me. I don't really care because it's got me this far. I don't argue with antis. If they show up on a Facebook page or if they show up...
they send an email, or if they show up in person.
I just get rid of them. I just get rid of them. And
we don't get rid of them in person.
Well, none of them ever showed up in person. None of them have.
No, that's true.
So why would I argue with somebody on my Facebook page about the values or the morality of trapping? I'm giving him a voice. I'm allowing him to preach from my pulpit. Not a chance. People that are open for discussion aren't antis.
No.
I mean, the old rule.
Well, that's kind of so I think that's probably where you were going, is the old rule of 10%.
Yes, 10% of us trap or agree with trapping. 10% are anti and against it. So it's the hearts and minds of the other 80% that we fight for.
And very interestingly, that 80% number represents most of the people who watch our TV show. 80% are not trappers. And
Exactly.
they might have had some connection to trapping in the past, but they don't trap now.
Well, we got so popular so quickly that we were invited to do seminars at many sportsman shows and that kind of stuff. We showed up for one in Vancouver. And before we got there, we were kind of worried because Vancouver is the center of the anti-fur movement. There's probably more antis there than anywhere else. So we reviewed all of our media training on how to deal with conflict in public and how to bring it back to the message and all that stuff. And we were concerned. We were on top of our game when we got there. But after the first day, we talked with so many people. My lips were tired. I had talked for so long, and the next day I said to Sandy, I says, there's just no possible way that these people are all trappers. So we started asking each person, are you a trapper? And that's where we come up with this 80% number, because overwhelmingly they weren't trappers.
Yeah.
But they were interested in the life, or grandpa was a trapper, or they, we were taught in grade school at grade 3 that trapping opened Canada. Canada was created because of trapping. And then you hear the saddest comment ever, right?
Yeah.
They look at you and they say, I didn't know trapping was still legal.
Yeah. And that is because it's been pushed to the sidelines so much over the course of the last several decades. It just isn't something that you might learn in grade school or even high school. If you're talking about social studies or something like that, every now and then it will come up. But for the most part, it's out of people's minds. It's not part of an everyday conversation. So that's part of what Trapping Inc. has done, is to bring it more towards a general conversation. Well,
what I like about it best is that most times when you're busy, especially if you're trying to monetize, if you're trying to develop sponsorship, they're always worried about your demographics. Well, I really like that our demographic for the trapping show isn't just trappers.
No.
Because the other thing is the overwhelming reason we got into this was to spread the word, to educate. And the fact that we're not preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
When 80% of our fans aren't in the trappers choir.
Well, not only that, but it isn't like they just saw it once and, geez, that was kind of interesting. All these people have got it set up on their on the recording device, whatever that might be, right? Yeah. And it's really kind of interesting. Oh, yeah, I got it all set up. I'm ready for all the new episodes. And when are they coming? And when are they going to be up on YouTube and all those kinds of things? So it's really interesting how people have really embraced the whole idea of trapping.
Well, and, trapping is so very relevant. I mean, there's the telling the truth about whether or not, animals are skinned alive. There's those realities. But the other realities is that trapping is necessary. Trapping is an incredible conservation tool. You take here in the province of Alberta, we have, on average, we ship 40,000 coyotes a year to the fur markets, to
and
the
you
auctions.
Still see coyotes, so it's not like they're being eradicated from the landscape.
No, there's still tons and tons of them. But can you imagine the cost involved if those trappers weren't doing it for free?
Well, we kind of know what costs could be involved. Just when you look over to the Netherlands and what it costs them to control the tiny muskrat.
That's right. Muskrat were introduced there, and they weren't native. Now, when your country depends on dikes to keep it above the water, a burrowing animal like a muskrat's a bad deal. They pay trappers to kill 400,000 muskrats a year. And then because of the European attitude with fur, they incinerate them all. I don't know in whose mind that makes sense, that you would kill all these animals and then destroy them. I mean, at least couldn't you put them to some use?
Of course, I don't think you really want that with the price of muskrats right now.
I don't need another 400,000 on the market.
No. But muskrats is one of the fur bearers that we have on our line, and you talk about economics of trapping. It's not always there in the wild fur market, right?
Well, probably the most. Most of the money in trapping is probably for coyotes and for muskrat, and that's usually the residential trappers. So in Alberta and in most of the provinces in Canada, you have both residential license, which anybody can hold, and they are allowed to trap on land that they have permission on. In Alberta, that permission has to be in writing. Okay, so that is where the vast majority of coyotes and muskrats come from. You have all those prairie potholes, all those boreal forest potholes that have the muskrats in them, and all the coyotes that are in the farmland. It's funny because we have also a registered trapline. Okay, so we both have both a residential license and we have registered license. Now, the registered license is our registered trapline, and that's where we go for marten and fisher, lynx, that kind of thing. Ours, registered trap lines are bought and sold, and they give the owner exclusive rights to that area. Our trap line is 4 townships. Okay?
Which is 12 miles by 12 miles. I think it's only the only one, or maybe there's one other that is perfectly square in the province.
That's good for me. I'm dumb, so I don't
anyway,
get lost.
It's 144 square miles of what's referred to in Canada is Crown land or public land.
Yeah.
And it is public land. Anybody can snowmobile there or quad there or hunt there, but they can't trap there. We're the only ones that can trap there.
That's right. I'm the senior on the line, and you and one of our sons are juniors. And so only the 3 of us can actually...
There can only be one senior on the line.
That's just the who's ever the name the line is in, and that makes me the senior. So when you have... Now, this is all public land, so that means there's no farming. Right, so public land in northern Alberta is all bush. In the big bush, we have wolves, and wolves and coyotes don't get along. Here, wolves eat coyotes, and if you do have some coyotes in the big bush, but very few and far between. And if they actually end up on one of our wolf baits and they get caught, the wolves eat them. Just about invariably, we maybe get 10% of them that we get to even look at, let alone skin, because the wolves eat them. So that's why the vast majority of these coyotes are coming out of the farmland where there aren't wolves.
Right.
But the wolves make sure that the coyotes don't make it good in the public land. So that's the 2 types of trap lines in Alberta. That's where we are and how big our line is. And even though that it's only 12 miles by 12 miles, we've got about between 180 and 200 miles of line, which is trails. We don't trap the entire trap line every year. We rotate through because that's the number one rule that a trapper has to go through is that he's a conservationist. And I mean, I want to maintain. If I'm used to getting 40 marten every year, I want to make sure I get 40 marten every year. You need to be able to predict a little bit, and you need to. One of the truths of management of fur and that is that the more you trap it, the more you manage it, the better your populations are.
Well, you can't put things on a shelf. As much as some of these folks from PETA would like to believe that's not true, you can't expect a population to thrive if they aren't controlled.
No, and I mean, lots of times we hear from trappers all over the place, and they come to you and they say, geez, Rich, I just got this trap line and it hasn't been trapped in 20 years. And there's just so much on it. Well, yes and no. One, of your probably your predators are your apex predators are going to be out of balance, and 2, when you take a look at the generational span of a marten, average marten lives 3 years. So if it hasn't been trapped in that many years, there's many generations that have come and gone that weren't utilized whatsoever. On our trap line, we had a huge number of fisher on it. And once we got the fisher under control, now our marten numbers have shot up.
Yeah.
We had the line that we've currently got in the first 4 years, we never got an immature lynx. They were all big animals. They were all mature. And now we're getting immature lynx, which means that what was going on before, now people think, well, that's bad. No, it's good, because what was going on before is the kittens were all getting ate. Mm-hmm. The adults were eating the kittens. And when you don't have any young around, that's what's going on. Now the adults have been cut down enough so that the kittens are getting a chance at it. And we've had an explosion out there.
Yeah, we sure have. We had a very busy trapping season this last, and it was a brutal winter for snow and cold. And then along came spring, kind of arrived inside of a week.
Well, yeah, you have another job. Of course, we both have other jobs. As our accountant says, our revenue stream is complex.
It certainly is.
Yeah. So you had to go to Toronto, and when you left to go to Toronto for a week, we had 3 foot of snowpack still here. You came back 6 days later, and you couldn't find snow, and we had a couple feet of water over our road. The first time ever in our time living here that we flooded. Our road is flooded.
Yeah, and we live out in the country, so we're responsible for our own everything.
So what's your day job?
Oh, I'm a VP for a bank in Canada, and I deal with commercial clients, so businesses. And I have a huge territory that I cover up in northeastern BC and northwestern Alberta. I'm on the road a lot, just to cover the area that we're in, but I often have to travel to Calgary, Edmonton, and occasionally to Toronto for business. So that means that Rich has to hold down the fort here with the 3 dogs.
Yeah, and I was holding down the fort while you were gone to Toronto, because I think the last day I filmed on the line was April 28th. And then everything, the bottom fell out of everything, but we had a huge amount of snow up to that point. And it all of a sudden became difficult to get around because the snow was so deep, and you couldn't walk in it. Because all of a sudden you thought you were walking on the bottom when you were wading around up to your waist. Well, now you discovered that the snow was actually up to your neck, because it got so warm so fast it just became bottomless.
Well, as busy as our trapping season is, and our trapping season pretty much starts October-ish, although our long fur, nothing really opens until November and then December. But we have a lot of things that we have to get set up, make sure that our lines are clear and things like that before we go out. But we had a busy, cold, snowy winter. Along came spring.
Boom.
Boom. And since then, we have been incredibly busy.
Well, my other day job is I'm a home builder. And because of the economic realities of the drop in oil prices, Alberta is very much an oil province, but combined with the drop in the value of oil and gas was a Liberal government, which is very anti-resource in our federal government, and then a socialist government in the province. So it has really kicked the heck out of our economy, and I wasn't building anything this year for sale, so our oldest boy took advantage of that, and I'm building a home for him down by Red Deer, Alberta.
And that means Red Deer, Alberta is 6 hours of driving between where we live and where they are, and that's also at 75 miles an hour. So, it's not a trip that Richard makes every day. Or even every week for that matter. Normally you're down there for at least 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah, it's tough being away from the office and all today's communication is so fast, and we come to expect it, to not be able to take care of something until I get home a week later. It just seems like the end of the world. When heck, we used to mail, it take that long for a letter to get Edmonton and back.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
But, while you're gone doing that, I'm holding down the fort. And like I said, we live out of town, and we have a nice big yard, and this year a garden for the first time in about 38 years.
Well, sometime we'll talk about why you were adverse to gardens.
Yeah, it's a story. It takes a lot of time to tell. Anyway, that's been the building of the house for Matt and Tiffany has been the primary thing that's been going on this summer. And then we have something in Alberta called the Alberta Trappers Association. And every year, the Alberta Trappers Association puts on a rendezvous, which is really a great big party for trappers. And it's been really wildly successful year after year. There seems to be record crowds and so on, but they move it around the province, which is kind of nice because it's not always in one area. It spreads out. And the interesting thing that it does is not just trappers that end up attending. It's a lot of town folk from wherever it is that we happen to be.
In that way, it's really good too, because it keeps spreading the word, right?
Exactly.
We come across, once again, very normal. Yeah. I think people walk through the door thinking that we're all bloodthirsty savages, and that none of that's true.
Well, maybe you are, but I'm certainly not. I think the great part of it is that, people can come and see what trapping's all about if they don't know anything about it. And as you say, they get into a crowd of people, and it's amazing the commonalities, even between trapper and non-trapper, kind of like what we talked about before with the big umbrella of people who enjoy the outdoors. Yes. A small percentage of those are trappers, but trappers connect to the bigger, broader world of outdoor enthusiasts.
Well, and this is everything trapping. So there's a trade show there. There's people selling, fur products or products for trapping, and there are seminars that show proper skinning and fur handling. There are things for kids to do, which is really neat when they sit down. Sit down 30 kids and teach them how to skin muskrats.
Or build a rope.
Yeah.
Like there's a rope building. Yeah, it was kind of cool. And then
and the other thing all these little kids running around, and they've all got a knife on their belt.
They've all got a pocket knife.
Yeah.
And where else do you see that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy, right? But the other thing that goes on there, and I don't know whether this is unique to the Alberta Trappers Association or if others do it. I'd love to hear. But they have an ultimate trapper competition, and that involves lots of different things. It's
At one point they strap on a pair of snowshoes and make a 100-yard run down the football field, and in another place they're setting traps for the perfect dirt hole for coyote or a trail set for lynx, that kind of stuff. They have different, I forget how many different parts to the competition, 5 or 6.
Oh, there's fire building, right?
That's right.
They have to boil a can of water. But they only get so many matches.
Yeah.
And they have to build this fire, and then they have a empty can of beans that's filled with water, and they have to boil that. The first one to boil that gets however many points, and then the last, well, not the last, but two of the really important aspects of this are the skinning.
The
right?
speed skinning.
Yeah,
there's one for beaver,
right?
And there's one for coyote. Now, it wasn't that many years ago. Like, these guys are really taking this serious, because it wasn't that many years ago that the fastest coyote, the coyote that won, was done in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And that would maybe have been, 7 years ago, something like that. This year, we had a guy do it 2 minutes flat, and he came in second.
And a friend of ours actually won the competition at 1 minute, 51 seconds.
Yes, Justin Wassasoo. Can you believe that? 1 minute and 51 seconds for skinning a coyote.
That it just doesn't, and boy, it's exciting. You talk about things that get people going, and you wouldn't think that skinning an animal would be one of them, but boy, the crowd is right into it.
Well, we did something else there that was kind of cool, because some friends of ours are furriers.
Yes, Sisson Furs from Red Deer.
Sisson Furs from Red Deer, and we have been collecting beaver. And I know everybody's gonna laugh. Every beaver joke under the sun.
I've told a good one too.
Yeah, well, here's the best, because I only like January, February beaver. The under the ice beaver are the best beaver going, right? Mm-hmm. And we took and skimmed the best out of our catches for the last few years. And we took 21 of them, and we had them not only tanned, but plucked and sheared.
Yeah.
I know. Insert laugh track here. Plucked and sheared beaver. Yeah.
The thing you got to understand, though, is those skins, and we'll have to put some picture, a little video up on the Facebook page to show people. But they are so luxurious.
Oh, it is one thing to run your fingers through a winter beaver, but the guard hairs on them are quite long, 3 inches maybe, and they're pretty stiff and bristly. But when they are plucked and sheared, those guard hairs are gone, and even the underfur, that thick, beautiful gray underfur, is sheared. That's the shearing part, and it is like half-inch thick velvet. It is the softest that you'll ever run your fingers through. And instead of being out west here, all our beaver are reddish brown. We have very few black colored beaver, and out east most of them are black. Well, this underfur is all this beautiful, like a dove gray. Just you even want your voice to go soft when you talk about the color. Yeah.
So what we're doing with these beaver hides that we've gotten done is we're working with Lyle and Carrie Lou. And Lyle is the craftsman. He's the guy who really has a vision of what to do with fur. So we gave all those 21 hides to Lyle, and he's going to get them prepared and get an idea of what sort of pattern he wants to put together. But the ultimate goal is to build a comforter for our king-size bed with these 21.
Yeah.
So we're really, really looking forward to what happens out of all this. And it will be part of one of the last shows. I think it's the 13th show. Will feature kind of us getting started with this.
Yeah, well, we've now broadcast 9 of 13 for this year for season 4, and the next 4 will be released October 1. They will start on Wild TV, and the 13th one is going to have this project in it because I'm once again catching beaver through the ice and that. And we get a lot of questions about what we do with our fur and that. And this is just one of those cool projects that really want to show people. People are never going to believe what this looks.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important that people understand that there is a use for fur at the end of the day. It's not just about killing an animal and discarding it and there's nothing there, right?
Oh, it is luxurious. It is the ultimate as far as green technology goes. It's the ultimate in reusable. It does not pollute the environment. Anyway, we're excited to be able to show this stuff and watch for the first part here in episode 13 of season 4, and the second part will be in season 5.
Yeah, exactly. And then just for a little R&R and goofing off time, we just came back from British Columbia.
Yeah, well, we practically went from running around with the trappers, and it was crazy there. We went from there to British Columbia, the province to the west of us, and the Okanagan Valley is well known for its fruit.
Oh, yeah.
and it's
I'd
funny.
Never picked a piece of fresh fruit off a tree ever in my life. And we got there during cherry season, so it was really fun.
And, I mean, it was so reasonable what it was costing. For us, anyway, it was so reasonable that the cherries were $2 a pound. But they should have weighed us before we went in and weighed us after we came out.
I'm pretty sure that we weren't the only ones, though.
Because the 20 pounds of cherries that we picked and took with us was only a fraction of what actually left the orchard.
Well, and it's very interesting because we have friends that have a home there, and they said that when they first started going down into the Okanagan Valley and spending time there throughout the summer, that it was mostly fruit orchards, and now it's turned into a lot of vineyards down there.
Well, there's something like 125 wineries in the Okanagan Valley. So you have all these fields and fields of grapes, and the second funny thing that's so funny about the Okanagan is that it is retirement central for most of Canada. Well, for Alberta for sure, all the old people go there to retire. So you have all these grapes being grown to make wine for the raisins to drink.
Oh, we sure had fun though. I mean, we did some hiking.
Other than the fast cherry two-step everybody was doing.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's a good thing there was more than one bathroom in the house.
Hey, there were people elbowing in the corners, man.
Well, we did some hiking.
Yes, we did. They have California bighorn there, so we actually got to see a few of those. Up and down the mountains, they're very different than the mountains we're used to.
Yeah.
Our mountains are quite different. There, everything's arid, semi-desert, more rocks than trees, but it was.
And it's hot there.
Yeah, it was. It was very hot, but it was a nice break. And now we're just getting ready for another major event. We are going to the National Trappers Association convention in Escanaba, Michigan.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. That happens. It's the last weekend of July. starts, I think it starts on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we're going to arrive on the 25th, so we can be there right first thing in the morning on the
Google
26th.
Maps tells me that it's like 1,900 or 2,000 miles from here.
Yeah, well, it's not a whole lot difference in distance, I suppose, than where we were last year. Last year was the first time we'd gone to this convention, and it was in Pecatonica, Illinois, which is just a very small little community, and it was held at the fairgrounds there, and it was a real eye-opener for you and I, because we'd never been to this before. How many people were there?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I think the most amazing part for me was the tailgate.
Yeah, that was cool.
That is a very big thing in the U.S., and it's unheard of in Canada.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't know that such a thing took place at trade shows and that kind of stuff, but it's very common there, and it's just not, we just don't have that here.
Well, and they told us, as many people as there were there, they told us that it was pretty small because it was too far south.
Yeah.
And we thought that was really amusing for us anyway. But this year in Escanaba, Michigan, there's supposed to be record crowds. So if anybody is interested in attending this, it's really an eye-opener from a trapping perspective. It's a really great event.
And we will be the people wandering around with Trapping Inc. T-shirts on.
Yeah, you'll see us.
We're looking forward to it. We have some sponsors for our U.S. Broadcast. We're on the Chantel Network on the East Coast, and on Channel 15, I believe it is. And so we have some sponsors there. We're hoping to do some podcasts with them from the NTA. We're hoping to see everybody there. It's going to be a lot of fun. It always is when a bunch of like-minded people get together. And trappers are pretty common, regular people. Yeah. You know? Yes, without doubt. So I think we've done pretty good here for our first first podcast broadcast.
But we do need to tell people where to find us so that they can learn more about us and
well, first off, I guess our show broadcasts in Canada on Wild TV. We're on 5 times a week. Impossible to miss us. We're the #1 show on the channel.
And the show's name is Trapping Inc.
Exactly. And now we are a video supplier for Amazon Prime,
which is really exciting and a relatively new development for us.
Yes. If you are a member of Amazon Prime in the U.S., and there's 75 million of you, check us out. Just search for Trapping Inc. We have all 3 seasons up, and the first 9 seasons of season 4. Our first 9 episodes of season 4.
Yeah.
Also, you can find us on our YouTube site, which is youtube.com/Trapping Inc. 2015. And on Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/Trapping Inc. TV.
And then, of course, where you would find our own website is trappinginc.com, and there's our store on there and links to YouTube and so on as well. So it's kind of cool. And Facebook.
And we'd love to hear from you folks. We want to know what you're looking forward to on the show, on this podcast, because we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. We've got a lot of guests lined up. We've got a lot of subjects to cover, but might even just be me ranting some days, especially if I've been in the bush too long and Sandy's not around. I might tell you my favorite spam recipe or something.
Oh, yeah. Spam. Nothing like it on the trapline. Anyway, this has been fun, and I hope you come back and visit us again.
We hope to do this every 2 weeks. Take care, folks.